fish and other organisms love seaweed, and we're able to remove a lot of the excess nutrients from the farm runoffs. So from that, from the biomass itself, we can turn it into more useful environmental products. So we not only grow seaweed ourselves, but we teach fisherfolk and fisherfolkmen within even vulnerable communities how to do the same thing.
Hello, everyone, and we're back with another episode of How to Save the Planet. This podcast series brings to you all of the interesting climate technology startup founders across the world. We are tuning in live from COP28 Dubai in the green zone. We've taken this opportunity to connect with various interesting founders who are doing amazing scalable work. I'm Zoe Joshi, and I'm from the Climate Collective Foundation. We are a nonprofit based out of India, and we support climate technology entrepreneurs. We have supported 862 startups to accelerate across South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Africa. This podcast series is in collaboration with Climate Tribe. Climate Tribe is a social enterprise who's driving climate action through dynamic storytelling. It is my great pleasure to introduce our exciting guest from Jamaica, Nicholas Key from Key Farms. Key Farms, named after your last name.
Yes, that's my last name. That is it.
That is it? All right. So tell me what Key Farms does.
Yeah, so we're essentially a ocean farm network and an ocean farm itself, focused on climate change mitigation through ocean regeneration and restoration. And on a practical level, this essentially just looks like us growing things like seaweed and oysters and other maricultural organisms to help regenerate and restore the oceanic ecosystem.
Very cool. And we were chatting earlier, and this is not your first venture, right?
No.
You're a serial entrepreneur?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, how did you come to establishing Key Farms?
Yeah, so it came about from, I guess, like a long journey of me trying a lot of things and being in different spaces and having many side quests. And so historically, I've been in the tech ecosystem for about 15, 16 years. And my first startup, well, I started out as an engineer, software engineer, first startup, and then I did a second startup, and then I moved on to starting a tech nonprofit, which I just concluded right before starting Key Farms.
Wow, so fourth venture.
Yes.
But you've been in the tech space for long, right? And did all of your ventures have anything to do with oceans?
No, none at all. The climate change space, admittedly, is not too foreign to me. Prior to this, at least while I was in the space of tech, I'd been doing a few side quests, as I had mentioned before. So I was working very diligently with the government on a lot of policy work in relation to youth unemployment and youth in climate change. And I'd been on a lot of committees and boards in relation to youth and climate change action and agriculture overall. And prior to this, I was just doing a few experiments on organic electronics. And so that kind of gave me the exposure from the practical sense and, of course, the policy-related and oriented sense within the climate change space. My introduction into the ocean, though, is pretty much primarily through looking at the lens of what is happening or what could be possible within the Caribbean region and looking at what I could possibly do as like an opportunistic way for me to get into the climate change space and be of service.
Wonderful. So this was more an opportunity-driven venture. So you know that there's a market for Key Farm products right now. You've done your research. You know that there's a market. You've identified your customers. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so with the Caribbean space, or at least the Caribbean overall, where all the countries are just surrounded by the Caribbean Sea. What I'd identified and found out is that the blue economy overall is very underdeveloped. And so usually when there's things that are very early or nascent, there is more than often an opportunity present. Yeah. And so this was a seeded opportunity for us to get into the space early, to start something new, to start something innovative that wasn't really seen in the Caribbean ecosystem before.
Okay, so tell me about the products, because it's very interesting. You are working with seaweed, which also sequesters CO2, right? And you're working with more products apart from seaweed products?
Yeah, so at least when we just started, we were kind of experimenting with the entire ocean farm model. So the full stack of growing things like seaweed, oysters, sea cucumber, seagrass, conch, and preserving mangroves. We started out with growing different species of seaweed and oysters, and we kind of rolled back a little bit to kind of just focus and double down on getting each vertical right. And so right now we're at the stage where we're trying to perfect just the growing of seaweed.
Okay.
hmm
Okay. And tell us what seaweed does. Because you mentioned sequestration, you mentioned pollutants in the
Right.
ocean, reduction, and what will you do of the seaweed?
Yeah, so from the biomass itself,
Right.
we're able to sequester carbon and remove it from the ecosystem. We're able to reduce ocean acidification. We're able to increase biodiversity because fish and other organisms love seaweed, and we're able to remove a lot of the excess nutrients from the farm runoffs. And so from that, from the biomass itself, we can turn it into more useful environmental products.
Right.
So that's biochar, hydrochar, activated carbon, agar, carrageenan, and you'll find all of these things in every single facet of our entire life.
Right. And how easy is it to grow seaweed? I mean, because we have startups in India as well in the seaweed business. Actually, cosmetics from seaweed are doing really well.
Yeah.
It's trending right now to have products from seaweed, etc. But I know that one of the problems that they are facing is the supply chain.
Yes.
How quickly can you grow seaweed, whether it's viable to grow seaweed in patches across the coast, etc. So how are you going to manage it at scale?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. That's definitely a huge problem that not just we face, but the entire ecosystem and the industry itself. What we've basically done is to use the community, or at least have a community impact and effect to try to scale. So we not only grow seaweed ourselves, but we teach fisherfolk and fisherfolk members and even vulnerable communities how to do the same thing. And so that is how we're able to increase the yield overall.
Very cool. So you have really adopted a community-based model, gotten people involved. So there must be a lot of skilling that you're doing as well as part of Key Farms, right?
Yes. So in doing all of this, we're essentially trying to grow the pie for the blue economy, ensure that vulnerable populations have a foot in the door, in not just the climate action conversation, but our push for environmental justice, which is, of course, something that the entire global south should be pushing for.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Tell us, where are you funded? Because this would require a lot of funding, skilling, getting community people together, skilling them how to grow seaweed and then value products from seaweed as well. Where are you getting your funding from?
Yeah, so we're very intentional about our funding asset classes and mechanisms. So we're all non-dilutive. Non-dilutive funding is what has kind of pushed us forward. And so we're either getting support from different government agencies in Jamaica or the Caribbean. We're getting support from private donors. We're getting support from foundations like the Smith Marine Technology Partners, and even through different mechanisms from the World Bank as well. So that is how we've been getting by.
Very nice. And congratulations on really getting non-dilutive funding so early in the game. That's really creditable. Okay, so tell me, what are you doing at COP? You're so far away from home. You've decided to make this visit. Is this your first time?
No. Surprisingly, one of our donors, or at least one of the persons who gave us a grant, is Expo City Live Dubai. And so they had basically brought me back to kind of share some of the wisdoms from the learnings of what we've been able to do in Jamaica, to also see what could be replicable, not just in the Caribbean region, but possibly throughout the UAE as well.
Yeah. Okay. So they are the ones who facilitated this trip for you. What are you doing at COP? What's your agenda like? Who are you meeting?
Yeah, I'm very bullish on small island developing states. Naturally, because I'm from one.
Yes.
And I think beyond that, just from a global south perspective, I've realized and noticed that we are basically missing from the action in every single facet, and we're underrepresented in every single way. And part of that is due to, of course, some of the injustices with respect to climate change degradation.
Yes.
But beyond that, at least what I've found is that because of that, we haven't been able to tap into many of the climate finance funds. So that is what is killing us, essentially.
Yeah. So you are meeting up with all the people trying to. So are you going for a collaborative model? Have you found other organizations who are doing this on the ground in other small island nations?
Yes, certainly. So even within the Caribbean in of itself, we have different startups that are focused on either byproduct creation or value-added product creation. And so we've been able to forge a lot of partnerships with them, even while we've been here. And beyond that, we've already started to have conversations with some of the UAE accelerators and business incubators who possibly want to see some of the work that we've been doing in Jamaica replicated here in the UAE.
Oh, very nice. Which also gets me to this question about the UAE. We are having COP here. COP has been amazing in the UAE, right? The scale that they've achieved, the number of
70,000 plus people. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The number of people that have come here, the kind of events that are happening has been quite at scale and really great to see. How do you view UAE? You mentioned that you want to be part of some accelerators here. How's the market here for the blue economy?
Yeah, I think it's extremely ripe. I think what has come up from a lot of conversations with either delegates here or those within government is that they're really bullish on diversifying their portfolio because they recognize that at least from an opportunistic standpoint, the oil will run out. And we are shifting to something more sustainable and we need to involve more vulnerable populations. And so that is what is on their agenda. What is on my agenda is to replicate and scale a lot of the things that we're doing in the Caribbean across basically the rest of the world.
Right. No, that's fantastic. And we do a lot of work in the Maldives and in Mauritius, and we know that these solutions are needed. There are a few local solutions that are coming up, but we need replicable models that can be just going cross-border and across similar geographies, because I think learnings from one small island states to the other is easily transferable, but not from different geography,
Yes.
where the economic conditions also have to be the same for a solution to be replicated elsewhere. So I think it's great what your agenda is. It'll benefit so many other small island states for sure. Tell me a little bit more in detail about COP, because we have this large community of startups, and all of the founders have been really a bit lost on what to do at COP, because when you think about such conferences, climate action is never priority on the agenda. It's more discussions, policies, debates, etc. But when it comes to startup founders, they want to know what they can leverage, what should their agenda be, how they should plan their visit, whether they should be talking to investors, and how easy is it to meet investors, meet collaborators, etc. So tell me a little bit about the planning that you did for COP, some of the interesting examples of who you met at COP. So is there a lot of learnings that you take back?
Yeah, for sure. Coming to COP is a very strategic move, and you have to move accordingly. What I've essentially done is to kind of look at the broader scope of the ecosystem that I essentially work in. Climate change overall is not siloed, especially within the ocean ecosystem and the ocean space. As I had mentioned prior, some of the missing factors within us being able to move quicker or have the exponential impact that we want to have is because of financing and financial instruments that could be available to us. And so what I had thought out to do was to look into the more climate finance oriented negotiation rooms and spaces, and to go into these spaces as well, listen to what is going on within the policy realm. Beyond that, I had moved into setting up as many speaking engagements as possible, because that's how you generate a lot of serendipity. And you need that kind of serendipity here, especially because it's over 70,000 people. You can't talk to everybody.
Yes.
And you only have a limited amount of time. And so what you need to do is try to attract people to you. And that's how you bring people to the table. And so far, I've been able to have conversations with lead people from the IFC and the World Bank. While I was on stage, they had also announced that they just opened up a new fund that we may be able to just tap into. And so I'm looking forward to that. I've been able to speak to different accelerator and incubator founders who want us here in the UAE and other collaborators within the seaweed and ocean space. We have different dinners and informal events and meetups. And so we're able to share a lot of ideas, share synergies, go to each other's panels and support each other. And so that is how I've been able to leverage a lot of the, I guess, my presence here at COP, being strategic about knowing exactly what I want or what I want out of it, knowing where to go, looking into spaces that are of relevance to understanding why things are a blocker for us in like the global south or even more so the Caribbean, and speaking to key personnel who can help push the needle on what essentially we're doing.
No, that's wonderful. And that's so useful for everybody to know because it shows the kind of planning that has gone behind this one visit, right? You have been very strategic. You've listed down the sessions that you want to attend and made sure that you're the speaker. And I'm sure that also takes up a lot of work to make sure that you are on panels, you are the speaker, right? You have to approach people before and make sure.
Yeah, and sometimes they reach out to you, which is great. You know, the serendipity, it compounds over time.
Yeah. And you need to have that visibility to make yourself seen and key farms seen. And I love that you're part of the whole blue economy circle because I think that's where you're getting the maximum support. You're going to these specific dinners and events and networking sessions. So I think the key takeaway from this is that whichever domain that startup founder is a part of, they should make a community in that domain to have a supportive community around it. No, that's wonderful. And then tell me a little bit after COP. So now that you're at COP, you're going to make all of these connections. You've spoken to so many people. You've gotten the visibility. Now, post COP, there will be a lot of follow-up to do.
Yes. So much follow-up. So much follow-up.
Yeah. And you're going to be very bullish about it too, right? The follow-up, because that's the most important part that it should lead to somewhere.
Exactly. And so the objective, at least post-COP, is really to lock down and solidify a lot of those partnerships that were just started as conversations here, and to even just follow up on potential funding opportunities, and even more so different PR and even speaking engagements post-COP. So that is the objective moving into the new year.
Yeah. No, this has been fantastic. This, blue economy is such an emerging area that I don't think that a lot of the global south has a lot of visibility on it at all. So it is definitely like a sunrise sector. There's a lot of talk around it, but I see very few actionable projects on ground. And you are pioneering one, which is so good to see. I wish you all the luck, and I hope that you get more and more collaborators to really replicate this across the global south.
Yes, thank you. And I'm hoping that through just my presence, I'm able to just inspire more potential ocean farmers and to also show that we essentially have solutions in the global south that need to be supported. One of the things that I've found within the climate finance space is that apparently they can't find projects.
Yes.
But I'm here to say that we're here.
Yeah, you're right here and ready to absorb all of the funding. And this is great because it involves communities. It has beyond climate, the community impact that we need, the social impact that goes along with it. So kudos to you and thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.